Why do we write scientific report? Is it because your teacher assigned it? Well, that is a practical answer. And sometimes we do write scientific report because it is one of the requirements in our subject. Hello my dear students, kumusta kayo? Good day, have a nice day. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is me again, Teacher Tin, your research teacher for today. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for more updates in Research 1. For today's lesson vlog, we are going to discuss about Module 4 for Week 4 of Quarter 4 in Research 1. Our topic for this week is scientific report. Let us define first scientific report. When we say scientific report, it is a document that describes the process, the progress, or results of technical or scientific research or the state of technical and scientific research problem. It might also include the recommendation and conclusion of the research. When it comes to scientific reports, it allows the readers to understand the experiment without doing it themselves. In addition, scientific report gives the opportunity to check the methodology of the experiment, to ensure the validity of the results. Okay, ito kasing scientific report, so ito yung ginagawa natin kapag nag-experiment tayo, kailangan natin na i-document bawat galaw na ginawa natin doon sa ating investigation, sa ating experiment. Kaya nga sabi dito, scientific report is a document that describes the process, the progress, and the results of the scientific research. So, meaning to say, isusulat natin dito yung kung paano, ano ba yung mga materials na ginamit natin, ano yung procedure na ginawa natin to conduct those experiments, and how do we gather those data, at kung paano ba tayo magbibigay ng conclusion out of the results that we have gathered from the experiment that we did. Scientific report, so para itong gumagawa kayo ng thesis, ng research paper, because everything that you do in your experiment, it should be written. Kaya dahil ang sabi nga dito, yung scientific report, ito yung maaari na magbigay kaalaman para dun sa mga reader na hindi naman talaga nag-perform ng experiment. So by just reading your report, they can truly understand what happened to the experiment that you conducted. Napakahalaga ng scientific report kasi it gives ideas to other researchers para magpatuloy din naman sila sa experiment na ginagawa nila, especially if what they are investigating is related to the study that you have conducted. Scientific report has several stages. A scientific report documents all aspects of an experimental investigations. And what are those stages of scientific report? Number 1, we have, of course, the title. So it's very important that you have the title. Next one, it will be followed by the objectives of the experiment. And then we also have the hypothesis. Next, we have introduction to the relevant background theory. And then it will be followed by methodology, results, discussion of the result, conclusion, and of course, we have the reference. Before we proceed on discussion about the different stages of scientific report, let us discuss first the guidelines or the rules about writing scientific reports. And we have 6 guidelines when we write scientific reports. Number 1, avoid passive voice. Yes, instead of using passive voice, we have to use the active voice. Ano ba ito? So for example, gumamela plant was extracted by the researchers. So, mali po yan. Huwag tayo gagamit ng passive voice. Instead, gawin natin tong active voice, itong sentence natin. So, instead of writing this, we can have the researchers extracted the gumamela plant. Diretso, di ba? Wala nang by the researchers. So, ganun kapag gagawa tayo ng sentences when it comes to scientific report. Rule number 2, use past tense language. Okay? Since we are writing scientific report right after we have conducted the experiment, meaning to say, everything was already done. Kaya dapat yung mga verb natin ay in past tense na. Ano po? And rule number 3, we have the headings and subheadings. Number 4, we can also have scientific diagrams and graphs. And this is important when we are organizing and presenting the data that we have gathered from the experiment that we have conducted. In that way, it would be much easier for the reader to understand and to read the results of the data that you have. Number 5, you also have simple and clear lines for scientific diagrams. If we have the diagrams, so it is very important that we have the explanation about the diagrams that we have presented, because not all readers can truly understand what you are talking about the diagrams that you have presented. So, kinakailangan na i-explain nyo pa rin siya, pero in a simple manner. And lastly, use tables and graphs when necessary. So, ito nga importante kapag nagpe-present na kayo ng data na nag-gather nyo from your experiment. Because in that way, mas nagiging simple yung pag-present natin ng mga data na nakuha natin base sa mga ginawa nating experimentation. And now, let us proceed with the structure of scientific reports. So, ito na yung gagawin nyo kapag hiningan kayo ng simple scientific report ng mga teacher nyo when you conducted a simple science investigation. Ito yung pinakasimpleng manner lang kung paano ba natin ipepresent, isusulat yung ginawa nating report from our investigation or from our study. Ito yung pinakasimple lang ha. Wala pa dito yung mga chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, and 5 ng talagang science or ng talagang research paper. What we are talking today is how to write a simple scientific report. Number 1, very important that you have the title. Yes, title. Ano ba ang title ng inyong ginawang experiment? For example, gawin natin ay The Role of Light in Photosynthesis. Okay, that's a simple science investigation. So, we have the title to introduce what your experiment is about. So, dun pa lang sa title, nakikita na kung tungkol ba saan yung ginagawa mong investigation or experiment. Number 2, we have the background information or the introduction. Yes, we have to write a paragraph that gives the readers information to understand your experiment. This includes explaining scientific theories, processes, and other related knowledge about the study that you are investigating. Hindi lahat ng readers mo ay merong alam tungkol doon sa ginagawa mong study. So, napaka-importante na magbibigay tayo ng konting background tungkol dito sa topic na ginagawa mo or ginagawa natin. Ano po? So, yan. Kaya importante na meron tayong background of the study or information or background information about your work. Okay, for example, okay, so sundan lang natin yung ginawa nating title na The Role of Light in Photosynthesis. So, for the background information, let us have this. Photosynthesis is a vital process for life. It occurs when plants intake carbon dioxide, water, and light, and results in the production of glucose and water. The light required for photosynthesis is absorbed by chlorophyll, the green pigment of plants, which is contained in the chloroplasts. The glucose produced through photosynthesis is stored as starch, which is used as an energy source for the plant and its consumers. The presence of starch in the leaves of plant indicates that photosynthesis has occurred. Number 3, we have the objective. I know you are already familiar with the objective. We are talking about the goal or aim of your study. And when we say objective, this should identify what is going to be tested in your experiment. They should be short, concise, and clear. Yes. Sa objective, dapat makikita natin ano ba yung purpose kung bakit mo ito gagawin at ano ba yung goal natin na ma-achieve at the end of our experiment. For example, the aim of the experiment is to test whether light is required for photosynthesis to occur. That's simple. Simple lang siya, concise and clear. Dapat malinaw kung ano ang hangarin natin when we are conducting this kind of experiment. Number 4 stage, we have the hypothesis. And I know you are really familiar with this because when we say hypothesis, we are talking about scientific guess. And when we say hypothesis, it is the prediction of the outcome of the experiment. Yes, we are predicting the outcome. We're expecting something. Ano ba yung inaasahan natin at the end of this experiment? You have to use your background information to make an educated guess. Kaya nga napakahalaga na meron tayong background information about that certain topic kasi it will give us idea on how are we going to predict. For example, it is predicted that photosynthesis will occur only in leaves that are exposed to light and not in leaves that are not exposed to light. This will be indicated by the presence or absence of starch in the leaves. That is your hypothesis. A simple hypothesis. It's just a prediction of what might happen in your experiment. Number 5, we have the risk assessment. Yes, from the word itself, risk. So we are talking about the danger. What could be the possible danger that we may encounter in doing this kind of experiment? When we say risk assessment, we have to identify the hazards associated with the experiment and we have to provide a method to prevent or minimize the risk. When we say hazard, it is something that can cause harm. And the risk is the likelihood that harm will occur from the hazard. Kaya kailangan na i-identify kasi in every experiment that we are doing, hindi naman maiiwasan na magkaroon dyan na maka-encounter tayo ng problema or maaari na makasakit sa atin or maaari na makadisgrasya sa atin. So before you conduct your experiment, it's really important that you enumerate first all the harm that you may encounter in doing this. Okay, and by making a table is an excellent way to present your risk assessment. The type of harm should be specified that occur because of hazard. And I know you know that it is not very simple to identify the hazards because sometimes we do not know what hazards are we going to encounter. Okay, for example, like this. So we have here the table. Okay, for the first column we have hazard and associated harm, and we have the risk for the second column, and we have the precautions. So again, it's really important that aside from enumerating the hazard and harm, you should provide a method to prevent or minimize the risk. For example, like this. This is very simple. Scissors are sharp and can cause injury. Okay, what is the risk? So it is low. What are the precautions? Use the scissors correctly and store them after use. Wear closed, durable shoes to prevent injury from falling sharp instruments. And another hazard, methylated spirits are highly flammable and can cause burns or fires. And the risk is low. Precautions, before using methylated spirits, ensure that all ignition sources such as Bunsen burners and matches are extinguished. Minimize the volume of methylated spirits used. So those are the possible risks. Stage number 6, we have the method. Yes, nandito na tayo sa methodology, and when we say method, we are talking about the process. Process on how you conduct your experiment. So, sa method, meron tayong 3 parts. First part, you have to list every material used. Okay? And when we are writing the materials, it's very important that we are specific. We have to be detailed. Ano po? So, every equipment, it should be listed. Ano ba yung amount na ginamit natin sa mga materials? Kung gumamit ka ba ng tubig or any liquid or any na merong volume, you should be specific enough with the measurement. Hindi pwedeng few glasses of water, or for example, a little amount of sugar, a little amount of hydrochloric acid. No. You should be specific enough. So you should write the amount, okay? And part 2, you have to list the steps of what you did in your experiment. Okay, dapat clear yung paggagawa ng methods, ng process. Dapat sunod-sunod, nakasequence yan. It should be written in sequential order. Should specify the equipment you used. Okay, you also have to specify the quantity of any material that you used. Okay, and of course, again, you have to use past tense when you are writing this method. Okay? And then part 3 of method, we have the scientific diagram of the experimental apparatus. Okay, importante din na meron kayong diagram para parang ito ba yung pinaka-shortcut or outline kung paano nyo ba ginawa yung inyong experiment. And number 7, of course, we have the results. Okay, this time you have to write what you observe in your experimentation. The results is where you document the results of your experiment. The data that you record for your experiment will generally appear on this part sa results. It can be qualitative data or quantitative data. It depends upon on what you have gathered. And I know you are familiar enough with the difference between qualitative and quantitative. Again, when we say quantitative, we are referring to the numbers. So meaning to say the data that you have gathered are in numbers. And when we say qualitative, it can be a descriptive data. You have gathered characteristics of that data. Okay, example. Yan, pwede natin siyang ilagay sa table. Okay, for example, observations of the effects of light on the amount of starch in leaves. So we have here uncovered leaf, which is exposed to light, and the second one is the covered leaf, which is not exposed to light. And for the observations, for the color, for the uncovered leaf, it is dark blue, purple, and black. And for the presence of starch, so yes or no, for the uncovered leaf, it is yes. There's a presence of starch. And for the second one, for the covered leaf not exposed to light, that is light yellow. And then there is no presence of starch. And number 8, we also have the discussion, of course. After the results, it's very important that we discuss the results that we have gathered. In discussion, this is where we analyze and interpret the results and identify any experimental errors or possible areas of improvement. When it comes to discussion, we have to consider the 6 factors. Number 1, the trend in the result. Number 2, the scientific explanation. Number 3, validity. Number 4, we have the reliability. 5, accuracy. Number 6 is the possible improvements. First, doon sa trend in the result, kailangan natin i-identify kung ano ba yung napansin natin na relationship between the independent and the dependent variable. Since we are doing scientific research, so we are dealing with quantitative research, quantitative data, so we have the independent and the dependent variable. And sa number 2 naman, when it comes to scientific explanation, so it's very important that we explain that particular result, which is achieved by referring to the scientific knowledge, theories, or any other scientific resources that we find. Okay, so nakita na natin yung trend. Ay, okay, positive linear relationship yung ating independent. Now, we have to give explanation for that. Bakit kaya tumaas? Bakit kaya bumaba? Ano kaya yung nakaapekto? Kaya importante na meron tayong background knowledge about the study that we are investigating. Kasi magagamit natin yon, yung mga information na yon, para i-explain yung nakuha natin doon sa ating results. And napaka-importante na magbibigay din tayo ng mga information na nakuha natin from other resources, lalo na kung yan po ay merong author, okay, there is someone na nagpapatibay na ganito nga ang nangyari sa bagay na yon. So, nagkakaroon ng strength lalo yung in-investigate natin. For example, the presence of starch is indicated when the addition of iodine causes the leaf to turn dark purple. The results show that starch was present in the leaves that were exposed to light, while the leaves that were not exposed to light did not contain starch. Yung pangatlo, we have validity. When we say validity from the word itself, valid, meaning to say, tama ba? Totoo ba to? Legit ba to? Okay, when we say validity, it refers to whether the results are valid or not. And paano ba natin malalaman kung valid nga ba yung nakuha nating results? This can be made or this can be done by examining the variables. We can identify the independent and dependent variable, the controlled, and of course, the constant in our experiment. So, before tayo mag-conduct ng experiment, dapat lahat ng mga variables na to ay napag-aralan nating mabuti bago natin i-proceed doon sa experiment na gagawin natin para syempre makakuha tayo ng talaga namang valid na results. Example, the independent variable of the experiment was the amount of light that the leaves were exposed to, which is the covered and uncovered leaf, while the dependent variable was the presence of starch. The controlled variables were the size of the leaf sample, the duration of the experiment, and the amount of time the solutions were heated, and the amount of iodine solution used. And letter D, we have the reliability. Are your results reliable? We have to identify how you ensured the reliability of the results. Paano nga ba? So, kailangan na ipakita natin na nagkaroon tayo ng repetition doon sa experiment na ginawa natin. Kaya nga mahalaga na meron tayong trial 1, trial 2, trial 3. Mga yan yung mga minimum numbers of trials. Hindi pwedeng isa lang. Kasi hindi magiging reliable yung results natin kung isang beses mo lang naman siyang pinerform. So, the more trials, the better. Okay, so yun na nga, you have to show that you repeated your experiments. You have to cross-check your results with the other groups or collated your results with the other class. So, kailangan meron tayong comparison with the other groups. Dun sa ibang trial na ginawa natin. Kaya nga maganda na maraming trial para mas makita pa natin lalo na, my results are reliable. Example, the reliability of the results was ensured by repeating the experiment 5 times and comparing results with the other groups. Since the other groups obtained comparable results, the results are reliable. We also have the accuracy. So, accuracy should also be discussed. So, paano ba malalaman kung accurate yung results mo? So, if your results are in the form of quantitative data, then there should be an accepted value for the result. Okay, and lastly, we have the possible improvements. So, sa lahat naman ng ginagawa natin, talaga namang makakakita tayo ng errors dyan. And, although naging successful naman yung ating experiment, may mga experiment pa rin talaga na, syempre, makikitaan mo na, ay, siguro mas may improve ko to in that way, in this way. Kaya nga sa mga research paper, meron tayong recommendations. Because we recommend this and that for further improvement of your study. So when it comes to possible improvements, so you can identify errors or risk found in your experiment and you can provide a method to improve it. Okay, and if there are none, kung wala naman, so pwede namang mag-suggest kayo ng iba't ibang ways pa kung paano naman may improve yung experimental design ninyo. Or kung paano ba mababawasan yung error sa inyong experiment. For example, possible improvements could be made by including control experiments. For example, testing whether the iodine solution turns dark purple when added to water or methylated spirits. This would help to ensure that the purple color observed in the experiment is due to the presence of starch in the leaves rather than impurities. And of course, we have the conclusion. Yes, from the word conclusion, we are going to give our conclusion. We have to conclude about what we have gathered from the results of our experiment. So, in making conclusion, we have to state whether the aim was achieved and if your hypothesis was supported, whether your hypothesis is rejected or accepted. For example, the aim of the investigation was achieved and it was found that light is required for photosynthesis to occur. This was evidenced by the presence of starch in leaves that had been exposed to light and the absence of starch in leaves that had been unexposed. These results support the proposed hypothesis. And last one, we have the references. So yes, it's very important that you write your references at the end of your scientific report. You did a research. Okay? Dun pa lang sa mga background information, nagbasa na kayo sa mga internet resources nyo, sa mga books. So it's very important that we have to acknowledge those resources that we use in conducting our scientific report. And you have to write your references at the end of your scientific report. Of course, as respect to those authors, kung saan nyo kinuha yung mga information na nilagay nyo din naman sa inyong scientific report. And there is a correct format in writing your references. And that is another topic for research. Writing, references, and bibliography. This is the end of our lesson vlog about scientific report. I hope you learned something from this vlog. Hanggang sa susunod na ating pagkikita. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something from this. This is me again, Teacher Tin, your research teacher for today. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for more updates in Research 1. Bye!